tonight. We're honored to have Rick Thompson here and his daughter, Maggie, and about 3 hawks. I got interested in hawks myself back about 1950. We went up here to Gus Langle's farm, just north of town here on Refugee Road. Probably don't ever knew Gus and Langle did a long time ago. He had Jersey cattle. Went up there one day and he was all proud he killed a chicken hawk. And well, you know what chicken hawk is not, but no one else knows either. Probably a hawk he had pinned up there. And when I was in high school here in Kirkersville, or maybe before that, because we had a teacher, Hugh Smith, that would take his classes up the Licking River with bird identification were part of their score, or their class. And some of the high school boys would brag if they'd kill a hawk up the Licking River here or something. I never thought that was too good a deal, so I studied hawks, read Field and Stream, all the magazines I could find on hawks. Found out that half of them, at least when they did a stomach biopsy of them, didn't have anything in their stomach. That's a pretty rough way to live. When I got to be a senior in high school, we started a science fair in Watkins. I thought about what I should have as a project, so I tried to figure some way to prove that you shouldn't shoot hawks and owls. Took a science project, got a excellent, I think it was, the first local contest, and then a superior all the way to state fair. And that qualified me to take a science test. So I took a science test and got the only scholarship I ever got. Paid for my first year at Ohio State, paid $270. Next year it went up to $300 a quarter. I went up from $90 a quarter to $100 the next year. Yep. But we're honored to have Rick Thompson here. He's hunted rabbits out on our farm at different times, and he's going to bring us up to speed on that, I hope. And he's looking for farms where he can fly his hawks.
All right. Well, I'm very honored to be here. The honor's all mine to even seem interesting enough to somebody to come and speak to a group like all of you here. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. And I always kind of wished growing up that I would have had the opportunity to be a farmer myself. But unfortunately, as most of you know in this day and age, you pretty much have to be born into that trade. So we do the best we can by putting out a pretty good sized garden over in Millersport where we live, and we have a handful of chickens. So that's the extent of farming that I get to do. So thanks a lot for having me out. I'll do the best I can to explain falconry, what it is, what I do as far as falconry is concerned, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have about hawks or falconry. And I know when you're involved in agriculture, there may be instances where some folks in here, or maybe people that you know, run into situations where you have a problem with a raptor, whether it's chasing livestock or something like that. And I'm always happy to be a point of contact if any of you have issues like that. You got a hawk stuck in a barn or chasing chickens or something like that, I'd definitely help you out with that, because sadly enough, there are still some folks out there that shoot hawks when they come across issues like that. Despite Mr. Martin's efforts on a paper there explaining why you should. So a little bit of background about me. I'm born and raised in Millersport. I've got 2 kids who are grown now. One's with me tonight, Elena, wife Teresa. I've been involved in falconry since 2019. The way that I got into falconry is a little bit different than a lot of folks' path. I guess I've always known that falconry was a thing, but it never crossed my mind that you could be a falconer and that you could actually obtain hawks and go hunting with them. I've been an outdoorsman most of my life. I love to hunt and fish and have for years and years. And several years ago, my best friend in the world, his name's Joe Kirk, he called me up one day and said, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" And I don't remember what I was going to be doing at the time, probably nothing. And I said, "Why? What do you got in mind?" Because we used to do a lot of fun stuff together. We'd go beehive, and we'd track bees. In fact, I cut bees out of this church years ago. There was a beehive in the wall of this church, and Joe and I cut them out, as a matter of fact. So we've been on some adventures over the years. But so I don't know what I'm doing. What do you got in mind? And he said, "Well, I wanted you to come over and check out my hawk." And I said, "Wait a minute, you're what?" Now, this was my best friend in the world, and we did everything together. And the fact that he had a hawk, and this was the first I was hearing about it, was a little crazy to me. So, well, heck yeah, I want to come over and see your hawk. I don't know what you're talking about. So, sure enough, I go over to his house, and he's got this brand new hawk that he captured out of the wild on his fist, and he's trying to convince this thing to take food from him. And my eyes are about this big around. And I, being a wildlife lover and an animal lover, I just can't even believe I'm sitting there watching my pal in his kitchen hold this hawk. And it's to speed up, to take out some of the boring parts of the story, once he had this bird trained, I tagged along with him the first time that he free flew it and actually took it out hunting for squirrels. And got to be a part of that, and we caught a squirrel that day. Of course, my eyes are this big again. I'm just drinking out of the fire hose. And I looked at Joe that day. I'll never forget. I'm doing this. You and I'm doing this. So the way that becoming a falconer works, it's a highly regulated sport, and it should be. Not just anyone should be allowed to possess a hawk. So it involves getting a license both from the state and the feds. In order to become a falconer, you first have to know one. Well, I had step one down. And then that falconer takes you under their wing, pun intended, and goes ahead and says, "I'm going to sponsor this individual." And so you become their apprentice for 2 years. And so before you're allowed to obtain a hawk out of the wild, you have to build a proper facility for it. In the state of Ohio, that's an 8x8 building at least. You have to have all the proper equipment, leashes, jesses, anklets, everything to take care of the bird properly. So a state wildlife officer comes to your house, inspects that building that the bird's going to live in, which is called a muse, inspects all your equipment. You take a test. It's 100 questions. You got to get an 80% on the test. And then they issue you a trapping permit. It costs $15 to get that trapping permit. And you go out into the wild and you catch a wild bird. In our state, the two birds that we're allowed to fly as an apprentice are kestrels and red tails. I don't know if any of you observe wildlife, but if you pay attention driving around here, you'll see many of both of those types of birds. Both of them like to hunt from telephone poles and wires are the places easiest to spot them. Red tails, the larger of those two, red tail's about this tall. And then a kestrel's a very small falcon. I have one with me actually. They're the smallest falcon in the United States, and they mostly catch small birds and mice and rodents. And they're about the size of a dove when you're looking for them. And so a lot of people, if you're going down like I-70, you'll see kestrels hovering over the median. You'll see them flapping their wings, looking straight down. That's a good way to identify them. They're the only bird around here that can do that. So I brought with me, everybody always wants to know how we capture the birds out of the wild. So I brought this method of capturing the birds, and this is actually an ancient method for catching the birds, and this is called a balchatri trap. And so I made this myself. You can buy them. A lot of falconers take a lot of pride in making our own gear and our own equipment. So this I made myself. I make a lot of my leather gear myself. The jesses and the anklets that go on the birds, and I'll show you what that stuff is when I get the birds out here. So what we do with this is a rodent goes in here. You can use a mouse, a gerbil, a hamster. Everybody has a different opinion on what works the best. Door gets closed, and we drive around and look for birds. And we're looking for, specifically, you have to use a a juvenile bird. And the reason we have to use juvenile birds is because in wildlife or in raptors, they have an 80 to 90% mortality rate in the wild. So of all the hawks that hatch, 8 to 9 out of 10 die before their first birthday. So the state lets us use the juvenile birds because the theory is we're not affecting the wild population or the breeding population anyway. So it has to be a juvenile bird. There's a way to identify juveniles by their plumage. So when we're driving around, we've got our binoculars out, we're looking for a suitable juvenile bird. We throw this thing out the window, chuck it out, drive down the road, and wait. And so the bird comes down and lands on this and tries to foot at that mouse that's inside that cage, and it gets its toes or its feet tangled up in these little nooses that I have right here. And so then we'll go and pull the bird off of the trap. We'll evaluate it, and every falconer's got different standards that they're looking for in a perfect falconry bird. Some folks are looking for a male, some folks are looking for a female. We're checking it over to make sure that it's healthy, that it's got perfect feathers, no wounds on the feet or anything like that. And the reason for the male and female preference is because in raptors, females are about 30% larger than the males. And because of that size difference, they have very different flight ability and flight styles. And so, for instance, if you wanted to hunt squirrels mostly, you may want to take a male bird that's a little bit more agile and flies a little bit faster to be able to work around the trees and things like that. If you wanted to hunt rabbits around here, in the big thick cover where the rabbits live, you want a big female that can bust through that thick cover and grab the rabbit. So those are a couple of reasons. And I'll show you, I have 2 Harris hawks here, and I'll be able to show you the difference in size on those. So yeah, you can use a red tail or a kestrel. You're as an apprentice. After you're an apprentice for 2 years, and your sponsor that took you under their wing has vouched for you and says that you're ready to become a falconer on your own, then you get passed to a general falconer. And that opens up some new opportunities as far as the type of birds that you're allowed to fly at that point. And so depending on what you want to hunt, whether you maybe want to hunt ducks and geese, you want to hunt squirrels and rabbits, there's different birds that are better suited for different quarry. Most people around here hunt red tails because the quarry that we have here is suited for hunting with red tails. That's why the red tails live here. I fly Harris hawks because I love the teamwork aspect with a Harris hawk. So Harris hawks in the wild hunt in family groups. We call it a cast in falconry. And so if you're ever out in the Sonora Desert in Arizona and you observe a group of Harris hawks, you'll see them pursue quarry almost like a pack of wolves does. And so they will work together to put the quarry in a position where they can grab it, and then they share the meals. And so they're a very social bird. And so in falconry, they're put to good use because they accept us as a part of their hunting family, if you will. And same with my dog. They accept Maddie as a part of the hunting family. So when we're out there, they learn quickly through the training process that she's a part of the team. And I'll get one of the birds out and show you. This is Miami. I name all my birds and dogs after different local Indian tribes. So this is Miami. The male that I have in there, his name is Dingo. This is Miami's 3 years old. She is an excellent hunter. We mostly target rabbits. Now I will tell you that Prior to last year, we mostly hunted squirrels. The reason that we targeted squirrels is because squirrels are readily available around here, as everybody knows here. You can go to any woods in central Ohio and find plenty of squirrels to chase. And I will tell you, there is nothing more exciting than watching a pair of Harris hawks chase a squirrel up and down nut trees. They're excellent at it, and it is, as a falconer, it's really fun to be a part of that hunt because the falconer's job is to keep the squirrel moving to help put it in a position that the bird can grab it. So we take out slingshots, we'll fire marbles or rocks at the squirrels, keep them moving around. We'll shake vines. He's going to talk to us. Like I said, they're very social. But this particular bird, at the end of her first hunting season, took a really bad bite from a squirrel, and it actually severed a tendon in her long toe right here. It was about $1,000 surgery to get that repaired. And it wasn't the expense that I would have paid 10 times that to make sure that she was able to go back to being able to use her feet, and she was able to keep on hunting with me. The part that was really heartbreaking for me, because I love this bird, is the recovery she went through after that. She had to wear a ball cast for 6 weeks, had to change the dressing every day, and I carried around a lot of guilt putting her through that. So I'll put her away. What I realized is that I needed to figure out a way to not target squirrels quite so much, because with hunting squirrels with a Harris hawk, it's like playing Russian roulette.
So they're around here in your state. I've never seen one where I live.
This type of bird is not.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I probably skipped over that. That Harris hawks are a desert species. They're found in the southwestern United States, all the way down into Central and parts of South America, and they're living in hot climates. And so for that reason, when it's really cold outside, like under 25 degrees, the birds come in the house and sleep at night. But yeah, sorry, I skipped over. Yeah, if you see one of those in the wild, it's lost. It's very bad. Or please call me, because I may be out looking for them. Yeah. So I realized I didn't want to target squirrels like that anymore. I didn't want to put my bird through. As much as I love to hunt squirrels with hawks, I know people that live down south that don't have good rabbit populations that hunt squirrels exclusively with Harris hawks, and some of them have two toes left on their feet that work, and it's just not. It's to me it's cruel, and I realized that the hard way once I came through that. And there are folks that fly birds that view their birds almost like an old school rabbit hunter viewed as beagle. It's just a tool. If something happens to the old beagle, it's no big deal. We get another beagle. And I understand that mentality. I just don't have it in me to be like that. So that's why I picked up Maddie over there. So Maddie is bred to be a rabbit dog. And a lot of people don't realize that dachshunds historically were bred to be hunting dogs in Germany. They were bred initially to hunt badgers. And so it's in their DNA to pursue game down into the earth and chase it back out. So in the States, what some really awesome people have done is they've taken these mini dachshunds and taken the dachshunds with the best noses and developed a line of mini dachshunds that we hunt rabbits with under hawks. And so now when we're hunting rabbits, she sniffs the rabbit out, she follows the trail, she'll flush it, the birds will give chase. If the birds would happen to miss, we get another chance. Where before I had a dog, if I tried to hunt rabbits, you get one chance, and if you don't get that rabbit, it's not likely you're going to find it again. It's going to go into a hole, into a brush pile. Well, Maddie goes right down in the hole after him, runs him back out. So
she wants to go hunting really bad right now.
Yeah, she's not used to leaving the house and not get to go
and seeing the birds.
And I kid you not, that dog lives to go hunting with the birds. She loves it. And I'll tell you, this is the first hunting dog I've ever had, and I've told a few friends, in my lifetime, I've lost some dogs that still choke me up when I think about it. I can't imagine what it'll be like to lose a hunting dog, because when you're a falconer, it kind of becomes your life. I'm ate up with it, and she's out there with me sharing my best moments that I used to be out there doing by myself, just me and the birds. And you try to tell a story to somebody, and it's really hard to convey some of the neat things that we see in the field. Well, now my dog's out there with me, and I have started doing some recording with a GoPro camera, which is kind of neat to share the hunts with people that way. But that's really changed things for us, and so we take a lot of rabbits now. One good thing about what we do is all the game that we take, I feed it all back to the birds. When I first became a falconer and I was hunting with a red tail, we killed a lot of squirrels back then and a handful of rabbits. And I will tell you that a person can only make rabbit and squirrel so many ways before you're just kind of tired of eating rabbit and squirrel. So I've got a big freezer out in the garage, and all of the game that we take during the hunting season goes into that freezer, and it gets cut up into manageable portions, and I feed it back to the birds in the summertime when we're not hunting. So we have a season to hunt just like every other kind of hunting, and our falconry season runs from September 1st to March 10th. So we're actually getting ready to finish up our falconry season. And the birds and the dog are due a good long rest. So at the end of our hunting season, I'll fatten the birds up. I'll start feeding them more food than they need. And then they'll have the nutrition that they need to shed their feathers, grow in a new set of feathers, and we'll be ready to go for next year. So my birds are looking a little bit rough right now. We hunt 4 or 5 days a week. It's not unusual. Thank goodness I've got a job and a family that allow me to do that, because I love it. There's nothing else I'd rather do. And it's funny, I told you before that I used to do a lot of other kinds of activities in the outdoors. I don't keep bees anymore. We do a little bit of deer hunting, just enough to put some meat in the freezer each year. I don't care about killing a big buck anymore, because when I'm sitting in the tree stand, I think about my birds and my dog sitting at the house, wishing that we were out there chasing rabbits. And I kind of think that way too. So I used to do a lot of trapping. Now I really don't want to do anything but run these birds and dogs. I really love it. I'll show you my male Harris hawk. This is Mingo.
Can you show them some of the white rump feathers?
Oh yeah, sure. Yep. Now this poor bird is he's looking rougher than a night in jail. this late in the season. And he's there we go. So this is his second season. And so he's also got, you can see how much smaller he is than Miami was. And he's an average sized male. She's what I would consider an average sized female. So his tail, and you could, were you talking about the white on the feathers?
Rump.
Oh, underneath?
Well, when he's flying, you see that white rump patch.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So his tail's pretty beat up, and the younger birds tend to be a little bit harder on their tails. They almost use their tail as a third leg. When they're on something that they've killed, they'll use it to kind of balance, and it's hard on their tails. So, and in the falconry community, the condition of your birds, we kind of judge each other a little bit on. So I'm ready to put him up, get him to grow in a new set of feathers before my peers start judging me harshly. When you hunt 4 or 5 days a week and you kill 50 or 60 rabbits, the birds take a beating from it. And it's not I could show you some videos. It's not always a real clean flight that they scoop up in the middle of a meadow. I mean, these birds are going through fences, they're going underneath tractors and through brush piles, and it's a treacherous sport. We lose a lot of birds in falconry due to some of the hazards that exist out there. I myself have lost 2 birds to electrocution. where they've landed on some unsafe power poles. And it's not always, a lot of falconers just think that the danger to their birds are power poles that have transformers on them, but there's some places that they can land that are dangerous that don't even have a transformer if it's not grounded properly and things like that. So, and I will tell you, just as a kind of a good service to wildlife, if you're ever out and about and you see a pole that has a dead hawk or a dead vulture on it, you can actually report that to the power company, and they'll take provisions to correct it. So yeah, this is Mingo. He's a pretty incredible bird too for being a young bird. And the neat thing about the Harris hawks, I started to talk about earlier, being that he's so small, he has a completely different flight style than that bigger female that I have. And so when we go out, the birds follow me around because they know that their best chance at a meal is to hang with me and the dog. And we're gonna get some game moving, and when we get game moving, they're gonna get a meal. And so he normally follows me around and takes a perch, somewhere 12 or 15 feet high. He's usually pretty close to me. My female will get as high up in the trees as she can, way up in the canopy. And that's them using their flight style and their size to their ability. So Mingo is oftentimes the first one to get to the quarry that we're after. And I've seen it so many, now that I've been recording my hunts, I'm able to watch some of these hunts back in slow-mo, and I can actually see times where, in the old days, I would have thought that he missed. But now I can see instances where he'll take a pass at a rabbit, and he won't even put his landing gear down. He won't even put his feet out to catch the rabbit. He was just pushing the rabbit out into the open, and my female comes down and hammers him. And it's really neat to witness that. And that's what they're doing in the wild. There's big groups of, it's not uncommon to see, a half a dozen of these guys doing that out west when they're in the wild. Harris hawks are a really unique type of bird. If you ever have a chance to encounter other types of hawks, you'll find that many of the other hawks we use, including the red tails, are not nearly as friendly as these guys. There's types of birds that you wouldn't dare come up and touch and stroke the way that I am this guy. You can see him doing his tail wiggle there. A lot of times that's a sign of content. That means he's comfortable, even though there's a lot of people here. He's not unhappy. Miami saying hi. So yep, that's Mingo. Now the juvenile version of these Harris hawks, they look basically like this, but they'll have a lot more brown modeled in there, especially in their breast. And then once they grow their adult plumage in their second year, they lose all that brown, and they all pretty much look the same. And one of the neat things about red-tailed hawks, and you'll notice this if you observe them in the wild, they cover a lot of different patterns. There's red tails out there that are almost totally white. There's some that are almost totally black, and everything in between. But when it comes to red tails, the way that we identify adults from those juveniles when we're out trapping is a juvenile red tail has bars across its tail, and they don't have that signature red color that we were looking for. It's not until their second year that they get that signature red tail. You're a pretty good boy. He wasn't very chatty at all. I gave him a pretty good meal before we came over here. To a hawk, that's all that matters. And to kind of build on that point a little bit, in falconry, one of the most important things that we do is we manage their weight very, very closely. I weigh my birds at least once a day, even on the days that I don't hunt them. And through the training process, we learn what that bird's ideal hunting weight is, or its response weight. And so once we identify the weight that they respond to, that's the weight that we take them out and hunt. And what I mean by that response is, if the bird's not hungry, it's not going to hunt. When you take it out, it doesn't need to hunt. So we manage that weight for such. So when we're offering, we train the birds almost the way you train a puppy, through food reward. And once we have the bird at a weight where it responds and it will fly to us, we know that we're getting it close. And there are people who are against falconry, like some of the Audubon Society is against falconry, and they say that we starve our birds in order to get them to do what we do, but it's not the case at all. It's more like managing the weight of a pro athlete, the way a wrestler would, for instance. Getting them to a perfect physical condition where they'll go out and hunt with us. The other argument I'll make about anybody that thinks that falconry is unfair to the bird, there are people out there that have hawks that don't hunt them as much as they should, and I think that that's wrong. I think that us having the privilege to have these birds in our possession, it's my responsibility to hunt that bird as often as I can. It's not fair to the bird to be tethered to a perch. So every chance I get, I take the birds out and I fly them. And anytime that somebody comes to me and thinks they maybe want to be a falconer or want to be my apprentice, that's one of the first things that I'm looking into, is that they're going to give the bird the time that it deserves. That's just my 2 cents on that. So I'll get my little kestrel out here. Actually, I lied to you. He's not named after an Indian tribe. I named him Cracker because he's like a little firecracker. And he's a male. So he's a little bit smaller, just like the bigger hawks. He's a little smaller than a female. And in my opinion, the male kestrel is much more beautiful than the female kestrel. So in the Harris hawks, they're exactly the same as far as their plumage is concerned, but the kestrels are notably different from sex to sex. And the best way to identify male from female kestrels is the males have this slate color on their wings and the slate color on top of the head right here, where the females are almost a solid brown with some bars on them. So it's, once you know what you're looking for, if you see some on a power pole, it's pretty easy to tell the males from the female if you can see the gray, the slate color on their wings. So this guy, the way that I manage my birds, so in falconry we use these to catch starlings and sparrows. Starlings and sparrows are both invasive species around here. They do a lot of harmful things to our native bird species, nesting in the cavities where bluebirds and some of the songbirds would. So it's a way that we can help kind of control a couple of those invasive species, and it's a lot of fun. He was a baby last year. I actually acquired this bird. He was orphaned, and a clutch mate of his was found hit by a car on the road. And so I got him very young. He still had a lot of his downy feathers on him. So he's probably at least partially imprinted to me. And we weren't able to take any birds his first year. He chased several. He does like to chase frogs, but I found out that once he catches a frog, he does not enjoy eating them. So we stopped chasing frogs, and being over around Buckeye Lake, there's always plenty of frogs around. So that was interesting. I did learn that, believe it or not, with a bird like this, you can see some spectacular flights on grasshoppers and dragonflies, and they chase those in the wild. And that's actually a really good time, chasing the insects with them. But falconers' ultimate goal with these type of birds is starlings and sparrows. And so, that right there was called a rouse, and that also is a sign of contentment. So he's very happy right now. He doesn't feel like there's any danger in here to worry about. So we'll be trying hard to catch some sparrows and starlings with him this year. So the way that I do it is, since we have a season on rabbits and squirrels, I hunt the Harris hawks all winter long and all fall. And then once that season closes, then I'll start managing his weight. He's very, very plump right now on the scale. So he flies at about 80 grams. So here in the next few weeks, I'll start cutting his food portions down, getting him back closer to that 80 gram mark, and we'll be out there trying to catch starlings and sparrows. But he's a really great little bird. He actually lives in our kitchen in a very large parrot cage. And because he's imprinted on me, anytime I come into the room, he thinks that it must be feeding time. And he lets me know about it. They're actually very vocal. If you ever have a chance, if you're on your farm or out on a tractor, and you see these guys when they're hunting, you'll hear them do a lot of chattering, and their vocalizations are pretty entertaining. And I get to hear all those vocalizations in my kitchen, whether you want to or not. Maybe you're on the phone and there's a kestrel vocalizing in the background. So sometimes I have to explain that. And they actually, if you're familiar with what a peregrine falcon looks like, I think that the male kestrel looks a lot like a scaled down peregrine falcon. They're very, very similar in appearance. So he is a true falcon, and they're a lot of fun to watch hunt, even in the wild. Like I said, you'll see him hovering over a median, looking for a mouse. So that's a little cracker. I didn't have a script to go over anything in particular. I don't know if there's anything that I skipped over that, Harold, that you thought I should talk about, or if anybody has any questions about hawks or falconry or hunting or anything like that at all.
Can you show me your dog?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Happily.
Why is there a hunting season for them? The bird naturally is going to hunt year round. So why is there
Great
a
question.
season?
Great question, sir. Reason for the season is this. As you know, the quarry that we pursue, this is the time of year that they're going to start procreating. And so they just want us to give the rabbits and squirrels an opportunity to do that. Now, you're absolutely right. Wild bird needs to be able to eat all season long. And the way the law reads is I can take my birds out to fly them anytime I want to. We can go out in April, June, July. If they kill anything that's out of season, I'm allowed to let them feed up in the field on that kill, but I can't take it into my possession. And so because I love this sport so much, and I want the quarry that we pursue to be able to repopulate, I just give the birds a break. And as much as we hunt over that 5 or 6 months that it is in season, we all need a break. My family probably would like to see me again. So it works out pretty good in that regard. Yeah.
Are you familiar with falconry or have experience with it that is actually used at airports?
Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about
A little bit, yeah. So what they call that is abatement. And abatement is it okay to lean on this a little bit?
That one right there moves.
Oh, okay. Abatement is, now it takes a special license. And I could go do abatement if I wasn't going to charge for it. But there's actually a lot of falconers who have turned falconry into a career by doing abatement work. And it does take a special license to be able to charge for it. Airports is very common. But basically what a falconer that does abatement will do is they'll take their birds into an area where birds are not wanted. Airports, stadiums is real common. They try to keep seagulls and pigeons away from stadiums. And basically it's like at airports, they don't want birds around for obvious reasons with bird strikes with planes. But some of those pigeons and starlings make a mess of things. You know, they poop all over everything. There's even, I have a friend in Michigan that does abatement, and he has contracts. He has a contract at the Big House. He has a contract where the Lions play, Ford Field, I think it is. And it's incredible the money that people pay to have a falconer come in. And most of the time, they're not even catching and killing anything. It's just the presence, the repeated presence of the bird that eventually gets the birds to move on and go somewhere else is the goal. And don't get me wrong, there's always something in the back of my mind that thinks, boy, that'd be pretty fun to be able to do that and be able to make a living at it. But I also have been around long enough now to know that you can sometimes take something that you really enjoy and get money involved with it, and it's not fun anymore. So for now, I'll just keep doing it for fun, I think. Yeah, that's a great question.
Are they using any around chicken farms for wild birds?
I don't know anybody with an abatement license myself that does that. I will tell you that I know that there's a lot. It's, starlings are really hard around, even cattle farms. When I go out west, I go to different falconry meets out west. They have a national event. Usually, it alternates: Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and I've gone to some of those feedlots out there, and it's unreal the amount of birds. These huge murmurations of starlings that are coming down and feeding on the cattle feed. And I think they do the same thing in grain fields, I imagine. And some of these flocks of birds that number up in the thousands, I can't imagine the losses that people sustain from. So I'm sure that there are, to answer your question, there are people with abatement license that do it. I don't know any. Most of them around here are in the city, strangely, or in airports where it's a droppings problem. Yes, sir.
I have two questions. Do you ever hunt mixed species together?
That's also a good question. I would not. In the falconry world, there are a lot of us out there that they like to push the envelope and do things against the grain. And I know of a couple of falconers that have flown red tails and Harris hawks together. I know of examples of two red tails being hunted together. It's risky business. That's the best answer I can give you to that question. With the Harris hawks, because they do it in the wild, you're not really asking them to do anything, out of the norm. Now, I have learned since I started hunting a cast of birds. It's really interesting. So, like I said, we're looking for a target weight to get a bird to be able to hunt. Well, the weight that a bird will hunt by itself is one number, and then there's a different weight that you may need to hunt that bird with other birds, because understand that bird's hunting weight means that it's hungry and wants to kill and eat something. Well, you don't want it to kill and eat your other bird. And so when you're introducing new birds in the field, that weight becomes something different. And what I've actually learned myself, and I don't hear this talked about a lot, but it's been my own observation, there becomes a competition factor with Harris hawks. And I've learned that you can hunt them at a little bit higher weight in a cast because they're constantly trying to outdo each other. And it almost is like they're racing to be the one to get the kill and get to break in and get to eat on it first. But there are falconers out there that do it. It's real risky business.
Well, my second question was, when you capture a falcon or a hawk,
Yes, sir.
you take it in, I presume there's a fairly long time of each of you getting to know each other, bonding. When you get ready for that first solo flight, do you ever wonder, is he really coming back?
Especially when you're a brand new falconer and you're releasing your first ever bird for the first time. It's the apprehension. It's really scary, and there's no feeling. I mean, it gives me chills to even think of the first time that bird comes back to you. It really makes you feel like you made it, And then the first time that bird actually kills something, boy, you really think you made it. And so I'll kind of compound a little bit more on your question. Believe it or not, and every bird is a little bit different. Just like humans are different, every dog's different. Some birds are easier to train than others, and some birds just never do get it. And they just never decide that they want to work with a falconer, and when that happens, we just let them go. We trap another one. But if you get lucky and you get a good bird, in about 2 weeks, I can take a bird from the wild and free fly it and take it out and kill something like it. It's a 2-week process, and this young'un over here has watched me do it a few times with some different birds. And basically, I'm going to hand her off to you. I need to talk with my hands, and I can't do it when I have the dog. To give you a little bit of insight in the process to train a new bird, and I don't want to bore anybody, so if I start to, I can talk for hours, so if I start to bore anybody, just please tell me to stop. When we got a new bird, the process is this. It lives in complete darkness for the first couple of days. and oftentimes in a hood. And the thought process is we're resetting the bird's mind. And the bird, in my comprehension of it, the bird's sitting in there, it knows that it's been captured by something, and it's waiting to die. It's whatever this predator is that's captured me, And so each day, initially, when you've got this new bird, 1 hour, you take the hood off of the bird, and the bird's with you in a dimly lit room, and you're offering it food on a skewer, a bamboo skewer. One of the rules of falconry is you don't ever let the bird see food in your hand. The bird associates your hand with food. You can imagine how that goes. So we're offering food on a skewer to the bird. And sometimes, if depending on what the bird's weight was when you captured it, if it was really hungry, sometimes the first time you offer it food, it'll take it off of that skewer. Sometimes it takes several days, and it needs to lose a little bit of weight to get what I was talking about earlier, that response weight. And every day we're weighing the bird and making notes. Okay, this is what the bird weighed. It didn't want to take food. Oh, today at this weight, it instantly took. We're getting that dialed in. And from the very beginning, we're figuring out what that weight's going to be. So once the bird will take food off of that bamboo skewer, when you offer it right up by its beak, then you start to make it stretch out a little further for that meat. And so maybe you get it to the point where the bird has to bend over and take it off your glove. Once it will do that, then you put the bird on a perch over here, and that leash that I had there, you have it hop to the glove. And then you back up a little bit, and then you have it hop a little further to the glove. Once you're out of the leash length, then we put it on a really long stretch of rope. And if I was here or in my basement like I am at home, you start here at that same length, and you stretch out until you're out of room inside, and then you take the bird outside. And then that's a kind of a big stepping stone, because once you go outside, the bird gets to see the world again. It sees the birds flying over, it sees the car going down the road, it hears the kids playing next door. And so what we do is we come back up here close to get the bird's attention and kind of reset a little bit, and we stretch all the way out. That rope that I tell you we put it on when we go outside is called a creance. And once we've stretched all the way to the end of that creance, it'll come 100 feet at the sound of a whistle to take food off of your glove, and its response is immediate. That's when it's time to go free fly the bird. And so the first time that you take a new bird out and you free fly it, it's very important that the bird finds success with you that first time, because the bird's learning. Everything that you're doing with that bird, it's learning. And you can, just like with puppy, you can teach it bad habits, you can teach it good habits. So what typically we do, we're gonna tromp around in the woods a little bit. We're gonna try to get a rabbit or a squirrel moving for that new bird. If a few minutes goes by and we don't get something wild moved, we've got with us in our pouch what we call a baggie, which is either a rabbit that we brought with us or a quail sometimes. And we're gonna chuck that quail or that rabbit out. We're gonna go, ho, 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 ho. Hopefully nobody bounces around in there. And the bird's gonna come down and grab it and kill it. And we're gonna let that bird have a nice big meal on that very first kill. And the bird's sitting there thinking, it's evaluated the last couple of weeks. So not only is this guy caught me, but he didn't kill me. He's been feeding me. Now I got to fly, catch something, and kill something. All of a sudden they're thinking, this might not be such a bad gig. I'll stick with this guy. And so we want to continue to help the bird find success over that next several hunts. And it's incredible once you've taken a bird and it becomes what we call a made bird, or they know the program. So after we kill something, there's a trade-off. And so what we use for the trade-off, during the training process, we have something that we call a lure. And a lure essentially is a fake bird that we attach a day-old chick to. And a day-old chick to a hawk is like a candy bar to a kid. It's its favorite food in the whole world. It's easy to eat. It tastes delicious. Everything they want in a meal is in that day-old chick. So during that training process, when we go out and we're working on that creance, every day we end the session with presenting the lure. Bird gets to eat that day-old chick. They're learning. oh man, every time I see that lure, I get to eat a candy bar, and I like that candy bar. And so the lure becomes our get out of jail free card. And I was actually just telling Harold recently, when I was hunting one of his places, one of my birds disappeared. It happens sometimes. They'll fly off. You're trying to watch the dog, trying to find a rabbit. Got 2 birds to keep track of. Sometimes they'll fly out of sight. Well, it had been long enough I was starting to get concerned. So I got my lure out and I'm swinging it. The bird's still not coming. I'm whistling, swinging, still not coming. Well, finally she came back, and so that's what we use that lure for. When there's a situation and we absolutely have to get the bird back, we present the lure. It could be a traffic problem. It could be a predator problem. Maybe there's a coyote, a bobcat, a wild hawk. This time of year, that can become really concerning because the hawks are starting to pair up. And they're really territorial this time of year. And if you're hunting in their woods, you know they want the bird that I brought to leave. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry if I was getting boring. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
How old's Maddie?
Maddie just turned 2 yesterday. And she is an exceptional dog. Like I was talking earlier, there's a lady who's a falconer that lives up in northeastern United States, New Jersey, I think to be exact, or Delaware. She lives in Delaware State. She's a falconer, been a falconer for a really long time, and she's credited with breeding the line of dachshunds that we use for falconry. Her name's Teddy Baritz. And so Maddie is out of her line of dogs that she's produced. And we actually recently acquired a second dog, a little 4-month-old male, who also has some field qualities bred into him. And so, long story short, the reason that I decided to get a second dog, a falconer that I admire a lot, a very good falconer that lives up in New Jersey, recently lost his dog Ginger to a black bear. And even though we don't have black bears around here, I don't really need to worry about that. There's a lot of other things that can happen when you're out in the field. Coyotes, bobcats. I'm sure all of you that have farms have probably seen bobcats. If you're looking, they're becoming pretty populated around here. And a lot of other things can happen that could cause you to lose a dog. A guy that runs hunting dogs told me one time, if you have 3, you actually only have 2. If you have 2, you actually only have 1. If you have 1, you don't have any, because any day you could lose a dog real easy. And it's not necessarily because a predator killed it. Maybe she cut her foot on a piece of metal out in the woods and I lose her for 6 weeks. Well, I got birds I need to fly. So I decided to get a second dog, and we maybe even down the road will consider breeding her, because she's actually turned out to be an exceptional dog. And CJ back there ran around with us all day one day. He got to see how special she is. And I tell people all the time now, I'm pretty much just transportation. When we get to a farm and I put the birds up in the tree and I put her on the ground, the birds follow her around and they do most of the work now. I just get to drive them there and take them back home. So, yeah.
I got one more.
Yes, sir.
So the wires that are not grounded that could kill a bird.
Yes.
Do you guys have a network where you share those wires, where those wires are at?
So,
Your fellow falconers?
I am very possessive over my hunting spots. So I don't have hunting spots that I hunt that other people hunt. In fact, I don't want other people hunting where I hunt if I can help it. Not to say, obviously, a landowner has the first say on that, but the nice thing about falconry is there's about 100 of us in the whole state. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a problem. Now, the one friend that I have, my friend Joe, absolutely, we do hunt the same property that I lost a couple birds. I let him know, of course. Yeah. But there's not enough of us to really have to network in that manner. But if there were, and I know like there are areas of the country that falconers are a little bit more densely populated. Here, that's not really the case. Any other questions? I heard that. Yes, exactly like mushrooms. Yes, sir.
How long do they hunt? I mean, how long can you keep a bird like that so it's supposed to hunt?
So it's not uncommon at all for Harris hawks, for instance, to live 20 plus years in captivity. The unfortunate part about what we do with the risk associated with it, if you're really hunting the birds a lot, it's really unlikely that they're going to make it that long.
Yeah.
If you're hunting 4 or 5 days a week, things happen. I have a friend that's a falconer in North Carolina that lost 2 birds this year. One was the bird chased a rabbit into an old fence row. Bird didn't know the fence row was there, flew through the fence row, tore off a limb. I mean, yeah. The same guy had a goshawk, which I don't know if we don't have goshawks around here, but a goshawk, if you're familiar with a Cooper's hawk, a goshawk is like a giant Cooper's hawk. They're from the family Accipitrae, which is a short-winged hawk. They're very fast-flying hawks. They're excellent for falconry. As far as hunting is concerned, accipiters have a reputation for being a little bit cuckoo in the head, though. If you talk to people who aren't really well versed in training accipiters, they'll tell you that goshawks are face grabbers or Cooper's hawks are. They're very good falconry birds, but they take next level training and attention to detail to turn them into a good bird and not be a psychopath. And they actually have a reputation for finding ways to kill themselves. They fly very fast, and they're very expensive. It's $3,000-$4,000 to acquire a goshawk, a captive bred goshawk, and it's really hard to get one from the wild. They nest way up in the top of tall trees in places that are hard to get to. And Harris hawks, I probably skipped over this. Those birds are captive bred, and they're about $800 to acquire a Harris hawk. And when you lose a Harris hawk, it's not about the $800; it's the time that you had in.
What happened to the goshawk?
Oh, the goshawk had an impact. I think that a rabbit flew under, or a rabbit ran under a shed, and the goshawk hit the side of the shed, and they fly so fast that it. And there are examples of birds that have done that. I've had red tails fly into car windshields, old junk car out in the middle of a pasture somewhere, and kind of get up, shake it off, and be good after a while. But those goshawks fly so fast when they're at their maximum speed, they damage themselves. So yeah, just to circle back around, they can live 20 years, but if you're hunting them a lot, they're probably not going to. I have learned, so since I've been a falconer, I've lost 3 birds. I lost the 2 Harris hawks to electrocution, and then my first red tail, who was an incredible bird. She was amazing. She actually died, from what I later figured out. We were squirrel hunting, and she chased a squirrel up a honey locust tree and slammed into that cluster of thorns that are this long. And when it happened, it took my breath away. I watched that, and she's got her feet holding on to those thorns and I thought, oh my God, she's skewered. And I looked at her, and I just knew that she was dead. Well, I called her down to the glove, got her on the glove. I checked her over as well as I could, and I'm an apprentice at this point. This is halfway through my 2nd season as a falconer, so I didn't know a lot yet. Thought I knew a lot. I didn't. So I'm looking the bird over really good. I'm flipping her feathers up, trying to stand. I can't find anything wrong with her. And 20 minutes later, she killed a rabbit. So I thought, man, we dodged a bullet there. I don't know how, but somehow she didn't get punctured by that cluster of thorns. Well, she died about 6 days later. And knowing what I know now, I would have taken her to the vet and got her checked out. She probably had an organ punctured that slowly just poisoned her, that was a heartbreaker.
That was actually really sad.
It was really,
that was
really
devastating.
Sad. Yeah, she died on Christmas Day. I walked out to her mews to feed her and found her dead, and that was, like I said, there are falconers who view their birds as a tool. They're like family to me. I mean, I same with the dog. So that's a tough day.
You might tell them what Maggie gets for the treat when you catch her.
Maggie gets the front leg off of a rabbit every time. And it's really funny because most of the time we get a rabbit when we go out. Most of the time. More often than not, we get one. But not all the time. It's still hunting. It's not killing. And it's so funny because sometimes when we're not successful, she'll be looking at me like, hello, where's my rabbit leg? And it's hard to explain to her because I don't speak dog that, well, we didn't make it happen today. So I normally will throw her one of the extra day-old chicks that I had for the birds as a consolation prize. But she doesn't seem to enjoy those as much as crunching on a fresh rabbit leg.
And then she'll come home and want to kiss you in the face, and her breath stinks really bad. Really bad.
And that, to me, it's one of the coolest things about these dachshunds is, at least this hunting line, they're excellent in the field. I mean, when I put that GPS collar on her, she knows what her job is and what we're going to do. And she's all business. And when we get home, she's a little couch princess. So it's far removed from your grandpa's beagle that he used to keep chained up to a tree out back and it got left. I mean, it's amazing what these dogs have brought to my life.
And the second he puts his boots on to go out in the woods, this dog starts whining, shaking, freaking out because she thinks Dad's going to leave her at home.
Oh, yeah.
And he never leaves her at home, but she doesn't understand that. She just sees the boots, then the birds go to the truck, and she lives to hunt. And it's honestly so cool to see.
I put my hunting boots on, and she knows. And she switches over into the field dog.
Mm-hmm. So. Even on the way here, she's like, where are we going?
Anytime we get in the truck, she thinks we're going. So she was whining the whole time we were coming here, just sure that we were going to go hunting. Yes, sir.
You might tell them that they can't hunt around cats because they're
Oh, yeah. So when Harold was nice enough to invite me out to his place the first time, I've learned through these losses that I've been sharing with everyone some of the dangers, and I try to mitigate the dangers as best as I can because I care about my birds. And so I don't fly anywhere where there's power lines, basically. And there's a lot of places that I have access to that I just won't hunt. Now, there are places where maybe there's a power pole there, but there are better choices of perches for the bird. And so I know that it's very unlikely that the bird will land there. But if there's a place where there's a big meadow and one big power pole in the middle of it, I know my bird's going to land on that. So we just don't hunt there. So that's one of the dangers I try to stay away from, of course, is power. And then cats. Believe it or not, when it comes to cats, a cat bite to a bird is almost a death sentence. I have several falconry friends who have lost birds, and it happens. I mean, they get bit by a cat and they're dead in about 2 days. Now my Miami bird earlier this year, she caught a feral kitten while we were out. Very small cat, and it did bite and puncture one of her feet. But I keep antibiotics. I keep a first aid kit in my truck, and I got antibiotics in her immediately, and I think that saved her. Possibly that it was a small cat and didn't have as much bacteria, but the bacteria that a cat has in its saliva is a death sentence for a bird. So anytime that there's a place, and there's a lot of places that I have permission to hunt where there's 15 barred cats around, I just can't hunt there. I can't risk it. And it's, there actually is a major problem with feral cats in the United States. And the HSUS and Humane Society, they really won't let anybody do anything about it. And there's a big, we have cats. We have cats in our home. We love cats. We've bottle fed cats. There's a difference between that sweet cat that lays on your couch in the house and this feral population of cats that are in the business. They're engineered. They're highly engineered killing machines, and they do nothing but kill native wildlife at numbers in the United States in the billions, not millions, billions every year. They're killing billions of songbirds and small mammals, and it's a huge problem. And so it's close to my heart because of the risk that I have taking my birds out, but it's very bad, and I don't know what it's going to take for legislation to separate the cat that we love at home and that feral population of cats that lives out in the woods, there's a big difference. And you don't dare kill a feral cat. You know, you go to jail for it.
Rick's always looking for places to hunt. If he has his pickup there, it says not vegan on the license plate.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, my license plate says not vegan. I had seen I seen another plate that made me think of it one time, and I got online to check and see if it was available, and it was. And I sat on. Finally, one year when it was time to renew, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get. There's a lot of people out there that have their stickers on their back of their vehicle. They're very proud to be vegan and not eat beef. I thought I'm going to put the opposite. I didn't come here at all to try to gain access to anybody's land or anything. I came because I respect Harold a lot, and he asked me to come. And but by all means, if you think that falconry is something that you would like to see up close, I'd be happy to bring the birds out. If you've got some places that would be safe to fly, and you want to see a couple rabbits. And one nice thing about falconry is, when we go out and hunt, there's no guns. You know, there's not going to be any buildings shot or tractor shot or anything like that. And most of the time, we're happy to get one and go home. It's not like we're shotgun hunting and there's 4 guys that want to kill a limit of 4. So we're never going to take out your entire rabbit population with falconry.
Google says that a pair of rabbits in 5 years, if there's no problems or disease or loss, produces 350,000 rabbits. In Australia and New Zealand, they don't have any natural predators, so they have plenty of rabbits.
Feral cats keep them thinned down pretty good around here. Of course, coyotes and everything else. But.
Well, I imagine any burning questions, we can get them maybe.
I just got one more.
Yes, sir.
You take the hawk out to hunt. Do you say, okay, today we're hunting rabbits? Or
Funny you should say that. So, as you know, I talked earlier about transitioning over from hunting squirrels to hunting rabbits. In the bird's mind, squirrels are still on the menu, and we'll go out and we're targeting rabbits. But if the bird sees squirrels, it turns into a squirrel hunt. And we caught 2 squirrels at the beginning of the season. But I have been interested to learn that when I don't foster that interest, and I'm not shooting my slingshot up there, keeping the squirrels move, shaking I'm able to get the birds to move on and leave them behind. But they're opportunistic, and if they see a chance at a free meal. Give you an idea, something that I found that'll ruin a hunt real quick is a deer carcass. They see a deer carcass when we're out hunting, that becomes a big meal. And imagine trying to transfer a hawk off of a 150-pound doe. Are you crazy? You see what I got here? And, you try to flop that lure out, that little day old chick, and they're looking at me cross-eyed like, I'm good. I think I'll eat this deer.
You said something early on about geese.
Oh, yeah.
Do these hunt geese, and how is anything being targeted to try to reduce goose populations in certain areas with these?
Great question. So, most falconers that fly Harris hawks will not hunt geese. I'm not most falconers. And last year, I decided to give that a try. And we took 6 or 7 geese last year. And so, I'm really making myself a liar here because I've done nothing but talk about mitigating risk and trying to take care of my birds. There are a lot of falconers who think hunting geese with a hawk is risky business and you shouldn't do it. And physics says that they're right. You probably shouldn't hunt a 10-pound goose with a 2-pound bird. It's been my observation, though, Harris hawks are really intelligent. And what I have seen is that the hawk, first of all, my job is to get there as quickly as possible and get control of that goose and dispatch it before it does any damage to my bird. What I've learned is the moment that the hawk recognizes that either I'm not going to get there quick enough to help, or it's getting the daylights beat out of it, and they do beat the daylights out of them, they just let go. Now, I think that there are probably some birds out there that wouldn't, and they would just hold a red tail probably if it ever was fortunate enough to get a hold of the goose, it would probably just hold on and let the goose beat it to death. So rightfully so, I took some criticism from some of my peers in falconry for hunting geese last year. I actually didn't end up targeting geese this year because we were having so much fun chasing rabbits with my dog that has turned into a heck of a rabbit dog. I actually had a goal at the beginning of this season to take a duck with my birds, but we just never did, so there's always next year. But yes, to circle back around, if you have a goose problem, I would be happy to bring the hawks out and give the geese a try. It's setting up for hunting geese with hawks is tricky. The slip has got to be just right, and what I mean by that is the geese are also very smart, and if they see a raptor coming towards them carried by some big fat knucklehead like me, they usually know to get the heck out and dodge. So I have to be really selective about what we call the slip. And so oftentimes what I'm doing when we're targeting geese is it's in industrial parks. And I'll use the buildings as cover, and I'll kind of sneak around the corner, and the hawk is on the goose before they have a chance to get away. Now, that goofball Mingo, the first chance that he had to catch one was up here, the new Kohl's building that they built over at 310 across from the new truck stop. They had just sowed some grass seed over there, and the geese thought that it was delicious. And we think the geese are delicious. So we went over there, and I used the building as cover. And as I came around the corner, the geese all took off, and Mingo actually flew and chased the goose, landed on the goose's back, and the goose continued to fly for about another 100 feet with Mingo on his back before it finally skidded to a crash landing. And I was running the whole way, trying to keep up, and it was so neat. I mean, it was one of the coolest, probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in falconry. And once again, it's just me and the bird. I didn't have it on film, but I can play it again in my head over and over again. And a really funny thing, the next time that I took him out, we tried the same thing at this, it was actually a church up in Pickerington. There was a lot of geese. And we tried to do the same thing, and he did the same thing. He landed on the back of this goose, and this goose jumps up and flies. He's holding on like a bull rider. Well, this time the goose landed in water. He wasn't real impressed with that. And so he's out there floating around. He lets go of the goose, and the geese are swimming off, and they're honking, and Mingo's looking at me like, what the heck was that all about? So he had to paddle back over to the bank. And, yeah, he wasn't real impressed with that situation. Yeah, chasing geese is a lot of fun. There's birds that are better equipped for it probably than hairhawks. A goshawk, actually, that name is translated to goosehawk. I think it's Finnish, maybe, but they're actually called a goosehawk, and they're pretty good at geese. They're a larger bird; they fly really fast. But, yeah, hunting geese is a lot of fun with them. And yeah, you got a goose problem, I'd be happy to bring them out and give it a try. So.
Have you ever had anyone try to hunt groundhogs?
I think about it all the time. The challenges that I see with it are the groundhog's usually not too far from its hole. And so you would have to have a way to sneak up on the groundhog before it could make it back to the hole. That's the first challenge that I see with it. But one of the things that a lot of falconers like me are attracted to the idea of is flying an eagle. So in the United States, we're not allowed to hunt bald eagles, but we can hunt golden eagles. The reason that most falconers in this part of the country won't fly a golden eagle is you really need to have jackrabbits to successfully fly a golden eagle on a regular basis. That's their quarry. I am of the opinion that you could probably make a pretty good living on groundhogs and Canadian geese with a golden eagle. So there may come a day in my lifetime where I have the time to try to commit to doing something like that. And the way that, and I'll try not to go on talking about this for a long time, but there's a pretty cool program in the States, and you farmers will appreciate it, where out west ranchers who are having problems with eagles predating on lambs mostly, other livestock too, but mostly lambs. They can get in touch with the federal government, and the federal government will team that rancher up with a falconer who is interested in having a golden eagle. And that's how we're allowed to, the only way that we're allowed to obtain golden eagles in the United States. They're not allowed to captive breed eagles. And there are some people out there, especially out west, that fly goldens that do pretty well with them, and they're incredible to watch.
Guess that's what I get for leaning into the best friend. Now I've got one more accent, two less hands here for holding. Ignored all of my